Now, here's an interesting story, and it's back to our old friend BuzzFeed. It seems that Comcast has sold 5.7 million shares or more of their BuzzFeed stock as the digital media company's share price was on the rise. And of course, that was because of a recent AI deal that was focused around sharing content and providing content to Facebook and Instagram, which of course are owned by Meta platforms. Now, BuzzFeed CEO Jonah Peretti announced that the company will embrace the OpenAI's application program interface, also known as API, to personalize content, moving from an R&D stage, which is where they were for quite some time, I'm led to believe, to incorporating it as part of their business. Now, as I mentioned, we reported this news already right over here. And if you want to take a look at that in just a moment, I would suggest that you do. And before we get into this part of the story, I just want to ask you a quick favor. Please double check that you're currently subscribed to the channel. In other words, if that little button down there isn't red, you've done it. If it is red, go ahead and click on it and it will turn gray and say you're subscribed. And that'll be great because then you can click on the little bell icon up above and make sure you turn on all the notifications. That way you don't miss a video, a short, or a live stream, because I do a lot of them. But let's jump back into it real quick because again, there's a lot to this story. Now, BuzzFeed stock has been on a downward roller coaster ride, and well, that is not surprising. It's not exactly been the most engaging site on the internet. In fact, the collapse of a lot of these digital media providers has been predicted for a while, and well, those predictions have been coming true, with a lot of them, including Gawker, recently, well, quitting for the second time. But moving on from that, after an initial investment of about $200 million in 2015 and 2016, Comcast has sold about 5.7 million shares of their BuzzFeed stock. At least that's what they've done in recent days. And this might be because of or despite the fact that there was a huge jump in the stock price because of investor excitement, I guess for lack of a better word, about the digital media company's recent revelation of their AI tech. Now, let me point out one more time, you can find that story here. And again, when we're done here, go check that out. It'll be worth your while. So in a regulatory finding, which you have to do if you're going to, sell a significant portion of a company, Comcast revealed that it sold 5.7 million plus shares of BuzzFeed, ranging in price between $2.75 to $3.46. So they made quite a bit of money. Now, they're not completely stepping away by any means, so for those of you holding BuzzFeed stock, which I'm not sure why anybody would still have, but some of these companies do, don't panic, because Comcast still owns more than 25.15 million shares of Class A common stock, so they're voted shares. That amounts to about 20% of the overall company, so they're still heavily invested, and if that doesn't keep them at the top, it definitely keeps them within the top 3. And of course, there's a lot of institutional ownership of BuzzFeed for some reason, maybe to try to direct narrative. But BuzzFeed stock saw that significant increase after Jonah Peretti, the CEO over there, discussed and announced the fact that the company is embracing the API from OpenAI and incorporating, well, essentially ChatGPT into AI-inspired content. And they've been doing that for quite some time, which I had already suspected, but they're moving it from the R&D phase. In fact, I'm going to say this. I suspect there are a lot of companies that are in the R&D phase of this AI stuff, considering we've already seen a lot of news entities start to use it, including, well, the AP and others. Now, Peretti himself believes that this is going to become a big part of their core business, and he believes that AI will be a benefit both to content creators and to the audience. It's going to inspire them to have new ideas and allow audience members to co-create more personalized content. Moreover, The Wall Street Journal recently reported that Meta struck that deal that we were talking about for about $10 million. Now, I believe that's a $10 million a year deal, but it keeps being reported rather vaguely. So that kind of concerns me because $10 million isn't all that much for you to be receiving a ton of content on your Meta platforms. I think that that's not necessarily a positive deal if that's a one-time fee to BuzzFeed. But of course, that announcement led to the stock's recent run-up and is underscoring the ascendance of course, the generative AI, which is a fancy way of saying people really like this, especially investors. So, as noted by Cohen analyst John Blackledge, he and other analysts are looking beyond the stated goals of the BuzzFeed CEO and seems to believe that AI could eventually help BuzzFeed generate more content at a lower cost and drive higher engagement and advertising. Well, that's all a bunch of fancy words of saying it's going to make more stuff for people to consume and be able to sell advertising and generate revenue. The quiet part here that is not being said out loud is, well, this is going to end up replacing humans, at least those that are working at BuzzFeed. And for many, it may be quite exciting. The potential of AI in the media industry has been something that's been speculated about for a long period of time. And by embracing this technology very early, BuzzFeed is positioning itself to be some kind of a leader in the AI content creation space. Personalized content is a huge draw, and it's something that inspires me to actually click on other people's videos when I feel like they're speaking directly to me. So how much more personal can it get than when you give the computer what you'd like to see and then it gets produced for you on the screen? So this is going to be a huge draw for not only people like me and you, but for many, many others. And that obviously is going to increase your revenue and your overall engagement, I would imagine. What's funny is the timing of the sale of all of this stock, which, returning to that conversation about Comcast, it happened very conveniently. It seemed to be well timed with a shift back to reality, which is reflected in what BuzzFeed's stock price target was set at, which is about $2, or right in that range. And while the potential benefits, again, for AI with BuzzFeed are quite clear, the timing and the impact of their growing adoption is murky, so Comcast probably decided to take their money and run. And I don't blame them. I would have done the same thing. Speculatively, this is largely because there's going to be a panic in the industry overall, and in many industries, probably, especially when it comes to journalists that are supposedly reporters, because they're going to start realizing that they're being replaced. In fact, I would say that while panic was somewhat squelched a bit at this early announcement, I would venture to say that that's going to change in the near future. Now, the focus is always going to remain on the long-term impact this will have on BuzzFeed specifically. And I'm just going to summarize my opinion here as skeptical. And regardless, timing is indeed everything when it comes to the sale, as I mentioned before with these shares of BuzzFeed. And it's remarkable, again, that it was perfectly timed the way that it was to maximize return. Could it have been scripted? Maybe by an AI. The media industry is about to get hollowed out, even further than it already has been. And the consumption of all of the media items actually will probably fall off, because not a lot of people are believing things that they're being told nowadays. Maybe that's for the best. Take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, check out my other videos. See ya.